At Starbound, we tell stories the way they were meant to be told, not polished into something artificial, not stripped of the weight that makes them real. Because if you take the human out of a story, what's left isn't worth hearing. So if you're still here, you already understand that. Let me show you something humanity never forgot. It started with the silence. Not the kind that comes from peace, or rest, or the quiet between conversations. This silence was different. It pressed against the world like a weight, like something vast had settled over everything and decided it would never move again. Kale noticed at the moment he stepped onto the transit line. The city was moving just as it always did. Rows of bodies flowing in perfect synchronization down the designated path, each step measured, each motion identical. Thousands of them, all walking the same direction, all breathing in the same slow rhythm dictated by the overhead signal grid. But no one spoke. Not a whisper. Not a cough. Not even the accidental shuffle of distraction. Just movement. Controlled. Calculated. Empty. Kale took his place in the line without hesitation. He didn't need to look down to match the spacing. His body already knew. 14 centimeters from the individual ahead. Pace calibrated to the pulse emitted from the towers above. He adjusted automatically. Everyone did. It had been that way for 173 cycles. Ever since the overseers arrived. Above the avenue, the drones hovered. They were always there. Perfect spheres of reflective alloy, floating high enough to be ignored but low enough to remind everyone that ignoring them was a choice no one could afford. Their surfaces shimmered with the distorted reflections of the world below, rows of obedient bodies, endless concrete, a sky that had long since stopped feeling like it belonged to anyone living under it. Kale kept his gaze forward. That was another rule. Do not look at the drones. Do not acknowledge their presence. Because if they noticed you noticing them, his jaw tightened slightly.
No, don't think about that.
Thinking was dangerous. Not illegal. Not technically, but dangerous. The line advanced.
Step, step, step.
The rhythm echoed through the avenue like a heartbeat that didn't belong to any living thing. Kale felt it in his bones. Felt it replacing something that used to be there. Something human. He tried, sometimes, to remember what it had been like before. Before the skies filled with silver. Before the broadcasts. Before the first corrections. But memory had a way of fading when it wasn't used, and there was nothing in this world anymore that required remembering. Only compliance. Only movement. Only survival. A faint flicker passed through the air above. So subtle most wouldn't notice.
Kale did.
He didn't look up, he wasn't stupid, but he felt it. A slight distortion in the rhythm. A fraction of a second where the pulse guiding their steps skipped. Just once. Then it resumed.
Perfect again.
No one reacted. No one ever reacted. But something in Kale's chest shifted. A small, sharp feeling. Out of place.
Wrong. Hope.
He crushed it immediately. Hope was the first thing the overseers had taken. Not by force. Not directly. They had simply proven, over and over again, that it had no value. The line continued forward. Endless. Unbroken. Unquestioned. And yet, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that something had just changed. Not in the city. Not in the system. But somewhere deeper. Somewhere the overseers hadn't fully reached. Not yet. He adjusted his pace by a fraction of a step, correcting for a deviation that no longer existed. The system didn't flag him. The drones didn't descend. Everything remained exactly as it was supposed to be. But for the first time in 173 cycles, something inside him refused to settle back into place. And far above the city, far beyond the reach of the drones, beyond the signal towers, beyond the silent sky, something was already moving. The line did not end. It never ended. Kale had walked this route so many times that distance had stopped meaning anything. The city was not measured in kilometers or districts anymore. It was measured in compliance. In how long you could maintain the rhythm without error. In how perfectly you could disappear into the flow.
Step, step, step.
The signal pulse above adjusted slightly, and the entire line adapted with it in perfect synchronization. Thousands of bodies shifting pace without thought, without delay, like a single organism responding to a single command. Kale adjusted too. Of course he did. He always did. That was how you survived. To hesitate was to stand out. To stand out was to be seen. And to be seen, no one needed to finish that thought. The buildings on either side of the avenue rose in uniform silence, tall, smooth structures stripped of all individuality. No markings, no colors, no signs of ownership or identity. Windows existed, but they were dark, reflective, and empty, like eyes that had long since stopped seeing anything worth remembering. Every surface was clean. Too clean. The overseers didn't tolerate disorder. They didn't tolerate variation either. A soft chime echoed through the air, barely audible, but instantly, every head tilted downward by exactly 3 degrees. Kale followed. The gesture was automatic, ingrained. Acknowledgement signal. Compliance confirmed. Above, one of the drones descended slightly, not enough to alarm, just enough to remind. Its surface shifted, rippling like liquid metal as it scanned the line below. Not searching randomly. Not observing passively. Measuring. Calculating. Judging. Kale felt the weight of it pass over him like a shadow. His breathing stayed steady. His pace stayed perfect. His thoughts slowed. That was another thing they had learned. Think too fast, and it showed. Tiny inconsistencies. Micro delays. Imperceptible disruptions in behavior patterns. The overseers noticed everything. The drone rose again, satisfied. The line continued. Ahead, the avenue narrowed slightly as it funneled into one of the transit corridors, long, enclosed pathways that connected the outer habitation zones to the assigned labor sectors. Kale stepped inside with the others. The sound changed immediately. Outside, there had at least been space, air to carry the rhythm outward. Inside, the noise compressed. Thousands of synchronized footsteps echoing against smooth walls, amplifying into something mechanical, something unnatural. It no longer sounded like people walking. It sounded like machinery, like production, like something being processed. The lighting shifted overhead, soft white replaced by a colder, sharper tone. Functional, clinical, designed to eliminate shadows. Nothing was allowed to hide. Rows of interface panels lined the walls at regular intervals, each one identical, each one dormant unless called upon. No one ever called upon them. There was nothing to request, nothing to ask. Everything had already been decided. Kale's gaze flickered, just for a fraction of a second, toward one of the panels as he passed. It activated instantly. A narrow beam of light scanned across his face, his posture, his stride. Citizen verified. Behavior compliant. Deviation none. The panel went dark again. Kale did not react. But inside, something tightened. He remembered when those panels used to display information.
Maps.
Messages.
News.
Back when communication had meant something. Now they existed only to confirm obedience. Nothing more. Nothing else was needed. The corridor stretched on. Endless. Uniform. Unchanging. And yet, the feeling from earlier hadn't left him. That flicker in the rhythm. That impossible, out-of-place interruption. It lingered, like a splinter in his mind. Ahead, the line slowed. Not by command. Not by signal. Something else. A disruption.
Small.
But real. The spacing shifted slightly, just enough to break the perfect geometry of the formation. Kale noticed immediately. So did everyone else. You could not notice. Perfection didn't tolerate imperfections. 3 bodies ahead. Someone was off pace. Only slightly. Barely visible. But in a system built on exactness, slightly was the same as catastrophic. The ripple spread backward through the line. Not physically. Emotionally. A tension that no one expressed but everyone felt. Kale's focus sharpened. His steps remained perfect, but his attention locked forward. Watching. Measuring. Calculating. The figure ahead struggled to maintain rhythm. Just a fraction too slow. Just a fraction too uneven. And that was enough. Kale felt it before it happened.
The air changed.
The silence deepened. The drones above. They had noticed. Of course they had. They always did. The question wasn't if. It was what came next. And somewhere deep inside Kale, that same forbidden feeling stirred again. Not hope.
Not yet.
But something close to it. Something dangerous. Because this time, the system had made a mistake. And mistakes, no matter how small, did not belong in a world like this. The disruption grew. Not outward. Not visibly. But inside every mind connected to the rhythm. The figure ahead stumbled again. A fraction of a second late. A single step that didn't land when it should have. It was almost nothing. Almost. Kale saw the reaction ripple through the line, not in movement, but in restraint. Shoulders stiffened. Hands tightened at their sides. Breathing shifted, shallow and controlled. No one turned. No one spoke. But everyone knew. The figure was old. That was the first thing Kale registered. Not by years, those weren't tracked anymore, but by the way the body carried itself. The slight curvature of the spine. The uneven distribution of weight. The subtle tremor in the left arm that tried, and failed, to remain steady. Age wasn't illegal. It just wasn't accommodated. The overseers had no use for inefficiency. The old man tried to correct. Kale could see it. A deliberate push. Muscles forcing movement that no longer came naturally. The gap between him and the person ahead shrank for a moment. Hope.
No.
Not hope. Effort. Then it slipped again. A half step behind. The rhythm didn't wait for him. It never waited for anyone. Kale's jaw tightened. He felt it now. That pressure. Not from above. From within. Do nothing. That was the rule no one needed to say. Do nothing and survive. Do something. And disappear. The old man's breathing became audible. A thin, ragged sound that cut through the mechanical echo of synchronized footsteps. Too loud. Too human. Kale noticed the woman directly behind him. Her hands twitched. Just once. A reflex. An instinct older than the overseer's. Help him. Her fingers curled into her palms, claws pressing into skin until they trembled. She didn't move. No one moved. Because everyone had seen what happened to those who did. Kale had seen it too. Months ago. Someone had broken formation to steady a collapsing worker. The drones had descended before the second step was completed. Correction had been immediate. Final. The memory flashed and vanished. Not allowed. Not useful. The present was all that mattered. And in the present, the system had noticed. A shadow fell across the line. Not cast by anything physical. Felt. A presence descending. Kale didn't look up. He didn't need to. The air itself seemed to tighten, as if reality were bracing. A soft distortion hummed above. Then,
it dropped.
The drone came down with impossible precision, stopping exactly beside the old man. No wasted motion. No sound beyond a faint shift in pressure.
Perfect. Cold.
Watching. Its surface rippled. Reconfiguring. A voice followed. Flat. Measured. Inhuman. Citizen 88214. Your movement pattern has deviated from assigned parameters. Correct immediately. No anger. No urgency. Just fact. The old man didn't respond. He couldn't. He was trying. Kale could see every ounce of effort pouring into each step. Muscles straining. Balance failing. While fighting against a body that had already begun to surrender. 3 steps. He matched the rhythm. Almost perfectly. Kale felt something twist inside his chest. A fragile, impossible thought. Maybe. The 4th step failed. The gap opened again. Microscopic, but fatal. The drone remained still for exactly 1 second. Then its surface shifted further. Panels separated along invisible seams. Edges formed where none had existed. What had been smooth became angular. What had been passive became something else. Kale's breathing slowed. Not panic. Control. Always control. Around him, the line continued moving, but something had changed. The illusion of normality was gone. Everyone knew what came next. No one could stop it. The voice returned. Unchanged. Non-compliance persists. Final warning issued. The words hung in the air. Not loud, but absolute. The old man made a sound. Not a word. Just effort given voice.
Raw. Desperate. Alive.
It didn't matter. Cale felt his hands curl slightly at his sides. A dangerous instinct rising again. Step forward. Close the gap. Stabilize him. One movement. That's all it would take. One. His mind snapped back into place.
No.
Because it wouldn't end there. It never ended there. The drone shifted again. Fully now. No longer pretending to be anything but what it was. A machine built for correction. For emitters extended from its frame, aligning with precise, mechanical intent. Each one aimed directly at the old man's center mass. Cale saw the woman behind him close her eyes. Just for a moment. A silent surrender. The line adjusted. Not by command. By understanding. Bodies stepped forward. Bodies stepped back. Creating space. Clearing the zone. No one was told to move. They simply did. Because they had learned. Cale stepped back. One step. It felt heavier than anything he had ever done. The old man stood alone. Still trying. Still failing. Still human. The drone finalized its configuration. Energy built silently at the tips of its emitters. No dramatic charge. No warning flash. Just readiness. Absolute. Cale stared forward. He did not look away. He could not. Because this was the truth of their world. And somewhere, buried under layers of forced obedience, something inside him refused to accept it. For the first time, it didn't feel small anymore. It felt like it was growing. And that made it dangerous. Very dangerous. The drone fired. There was no build-up. No dramatic surge of light or sound. Just a sharp, contained release, four beams converging in a single instant. A quiet hiss. Like air escaping a sealed chamber. The old man's body jerked. Lifted slightly from the ground as the energy struck. For a fraction of a second, he was still there. Then he wasn't. The body collapsed inward, structure failing under forces it could not resist. What remained fell to the pavement in a dark, spreading stain that didn't belong in a world this controlled. Silence followed. Not the imposed silence of obedience. Something heavier. Something alive. The line had stopped. Not physically. Their feet still moved. The rhythm still echoed. But something inside it had broken. Cale stared at the space where the man had been. His mind didn't process it as death. Not immediately. It processed it as absence. A person replaced by nothing. A presence erased so completely it felt like reality had skipped. Around him, no one reacted. No cries. No movement. No resistance. But Cale saw it. In the smallest details. The tightening of jaws. The slight tremble in hands. The way breathing faltered for just a fraction too long. They felt it. All of them. They just didn't dare show it. The drone folded. Its angular form collapsing back into perfect symmetry, seemed sealing as if they had never existed. Within seconds, it was once again a flawless sphere. Floating. Watching. As if nothing had happened. A voice followed.
Come.
Unchanged. Sanitation protocol engaged. Maintain assigned movement. Deviation will result in corrective action. A thin line of light appeared on the ground.
Bright. Clean.
It curved smoothly around the dark stain, reconnecting with the original path ahead. An adjustment. A correction. The system compensating for loss. The line obeyed. Of course it did. One by one, bodies followed the new path, stepping around what remained. Not over it. Never over it. Even in correction there was order. Cale moved with them.
Step. Step. Step.
His eyes stayed forward. But he saw it. At the edge of his vision. That dark mark on the ground. That proof. That reminder. As each person passed it, something changed. Subtle, but real. Cale noticed it in their eyes. Those who glanced, even for a fraction of a second. Something inside them dimmed. Not shattered. Not violently. Just extinguished. Like a light running out of fuel. Hope hadn't just been taken. It had been replaced. with something quieter, something colder. Acceptance. Kale felt it pressing against him,
Trying to settle in.
trying to smooth everything out, make it easier, make it normal. This is how things are. This is how things will always be. He followed the path. Perfect pace, perfect spacing, perfect obedience. But inside, the earlier feeling didn't fade. It didn't shrink. It didn't disappear like it was supposed to. It stayed. Sharp. Unresolved.
Alive.
Hours later, the rhythm finally ended. Not because it was complete, because it transitioned. The line funneled into the labor sector. Rows of identical entry points, each citizen stepping into their assigned position without instruction. Kale entered his. The room was vast, windowless, filled with rows upon rows of individuals seated in perfect alignment, each one holding the same device, each one facing the same direction, each one performing the same task. Watching, Kale sat. The seat adjusted automatically to his posture. The device activated the moment his hands touched it. A screen flickered to life.
Bright.
Controlled. Perfect.
A voice began. Smooth.
Artificially calm. The integration process continues to exceed projected efficiency metrics. Compliance ensures stability. Stability ensures longevity. Images followed. Cities without damage. Citizens walking freely. Smiling. Interacting. A world that did not exist. Conflict is a product of unstructured autonomy. The overseers provide refinement, purpose, order. Kale stared at the screen. His face remained still. His body remained compliant. But his mind was somewhere else. Back on the avenue. Back at the moment the drone descended. Back at the space where a person had been erased. Freedom is not removed. The voice continued. It is optimized. The image shifted. Citizens in open spaces. No drones visible. No restrictions. A lie so perfect it almost felt convincing. Almost. Kale felt something rise in his chest. Not anger. Not yet. Something quieter. More dangerous. Recognition. He understood now. Not just what they were doing.
But how?
They weren't just controlling bodies. They were rewriting reality. Replacing memory. Replacing meaning. Replacing truth. And the worst part, it was working. Around him, no one reacted. No one questioned. No one resisted. Because there was nothing left to resist with. The system hadn't just taken their freedom. It had taken the idea that freedom had ever existed. The screen flickered. Just for a moment. A brief distortion. Static. Gone as quickly as it appeared. Kale's eyes sharpened. That wasn't part of the program. The image stabilized. The voice continued. Uninterrupted. But something had changed. Not on the screen. Not in the room. Inside him. That same feeling. The one from earlier. Returned. Stronger now. Clearer. Not hope. Not yet. But something that could become it. If given a reason. Kale leaned forward slightly. Just enough to focus. Just enough to notice. Because for the first time, the system wasn't perfect. And if the system wasn't perfect, then it could break. And if it could break, then something else was possible.
He didn't know it yet.
But for the first time since the overseers arrived, he wanted to find out. The screen flickered again. Longer this time. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But Kale saw it. A distortion, thin lines of static cutting across the image, like something trying to push through from the other side. Then it stabilized. The propaganda resumed. Structured compliance ensures the elimination of suffering. It cut. Not smoothly. Not like a transition. Like something had forced it aside. The image changed. A face appeared. Human. Kale froze. Not physically. He couldn't afford that. But inside. Everything stopped. The man on the screen looked directly at him. Mid-40s, maybe. Short dark hair, streaked with gray at the temples. Eyes sharp. Focused. Not empty. Not controlled.
Alive.
Behind him, metal walls. Harsh lighting. A confined space that felt nothing like the overseer infrastructure. Different.
Wrong. Real.
The man smiled slightly. Not wide. Not friendly. Familiar. Kale, he said. Casual. Like they'd spoken yesterday. Kale's grip tightened on the device. His pulse spiked, but his breathing stayed controlled. It had to. No one else reacted. No one else even noticed. Every other screen in the room still played the same perfect lie. This was only for him. That realization hit hard. Too hard.
Trap.
It had to be. The overseers didn't miss things. They didn't allow interference. They didn't. Relax, the man said quietly. If this was a test, you'd already be dead. Kale didn't respond. He couldn't. Didn't trust it.
Didn't trust anything.
His eyes shifted just slightly.
Left. Right.
Everyone remained still, watching their screens, oblivious, or pretending to be. His attention snapped back. The man was still there, still watching him, measuring him. You're harder to reach than expected, the man continued. We've been trying for a while.
We.
That word mattered. Kale's mind raced.
Fast.
Dangerously fast. He forced it down, controlled it.
Don't react, the man said.
Not yet. Just listen. Kale's fingers tightened slightly against the device. Minimal movement. Within tolerance. Your world isn't isolated, the man said. Not anymore. A pause. Then, they made a mistake. Kale's chest tightened. That word again. Mistake. The man leaned slightly closer to whatever camera was capturing him. Systems like this, he continued, they rely on perfection. Absolute control. No variables. His voice lowered. But perfection doesn't exist. The screen flickered again. Not randomly. Interference.
Strain.
Whatever this connection was, it wasn't stable. They don't know we're here yet, the man said. But they will. Kale felt it now. That pressure. Not fear. Anticipation. Something building. You're going to see things change, the man continued. Soon.
A beat.
Then, I need you to stay alive until that happens. Kale's jaw tightened. There it was. The hook.
The ask.
The risk. Everything about this screamed danger. Everything about it screamed impossible. And yet, it felt more real than anything he had seen in 173 cycles. Why?
Kale said.
Barely a whisper. His lips moved just enough to form the word. It was a risk. A massive one. The man's smile shifted. Not wider.
Sharper.
Because, he said, you're not supposed to be here. Kale's mind jolted. What? No time. The man cut in. Listen carefully. The image distorted again, harder now. Lines tearing across the screen. They've rewritten your world, he said quickly. But they didn't erase everything. Just buried it. Kale's heart pounded. Too fast. Dangerously fast.
Buried what? He asked.
The man held his gaze. You. The word hit harder than anything else. You were never part of this system, he continued. You were inserted into it. Kale's thoughts fractured. That didn't make sense. It couldn't. He had memories. He had. They're not all yours, the man said, reading him. Not originally. The room around Kale felt distant. Muted. Like he was falling out of it. You were placed here for a reason, the man continued. And right now, you're exactly where we need you.
We.
Again. Kale swallowed. Who are you? He asked. The answer came, without hesitation. Humanity. The word landed differently.
Heavy.
Unfamiliar. But not empty. Never empty. The screen crackled violently. Connection failing. Time running out. They think they've won, the man said quickly. They think this world is finished. Another distortion.
Stronger.
But they don't understand something. Kale leaned forward. Just slightly.
Drawn in.
They don't understand us.
A beat.
Then the man's voice dropped. Quiet, certain, absolute. We don't leave our people behind. The screen went black. Instantly.
Clean.
The propaganda snapped back into place mid-sentence. Compliance ensures optimal societal function. No one reacted. No alarms. No drones descending. Nothing. As if it had never happened. Kale sat perfectly still. Device in hand. Eyes forward. Body compliant. But inside, Nothing was the same. His breathing slowed. His pulse steadied. But that feeling, that dangerous, forbidden feeling, it wasn't small anymore. It wasn't fragile. It wasn't uncertain.
It had a shape now.
A direction. A purpose. Something was coming. He didn't know what. He didn't know when. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The system was about to be tested. And this time, it wasn't ready. Cale did not move. The screen continued its loop. Images of impossible peace. Voices speaking of order. Of stability. Of a future that no one in this room would ever truly see. Everything was exactly as it had been. Except now, it wasn't. Because Cale knew. And knowing changed everything. He forced his breathing into rhythm. Matched the pace. Matched the posture. Matched the stillness of every other body in the room. But beneath that, his mind was moving.
Carefully. Slowly.
Deliberately. He replayed every word. Every detail. Every inconsistency. Humanity. The word echoed. It felt unfamiliar. Not wrong. Just distant. Like something he should remember, but couldn't fully reach. They don't leave their people behind. The sentence lingered. Dangerous. Hope disguised as logic. Or logic disguised as hope. Either way, it didn't belong here. A soft tone chimed. Break interval. Exactly on schedule. Rows of bodies stood in perfect unison. Cale stood with them. No hesitation. No delay. The line reformed instantly as they exited the chamber, flowing back into the corridors with the same precise spacing, the same controlled movement. Nothing had changed. That was the illusion. Cale stepped into the corridor. The lighting remained cold. The air remained still. The system remained perfect.
But now,
he was looking for the cracks. And once you start looking, you start seeing. The first was small. Almost nothing. A delay in one of the wall panels as it scanned the passing line. A fraction of a second longer than normal. Too small for anyone else to notice. Not small enough anymore. Cale filed it away. He kept walking.
Step, step, step.
Ahead, the corridor split. One path leading toward the nutrient distribution sector. The other, sanitation. Cale adjusted his route slightly. Minimal deviation. Within acceptable parameters. The system didn't react. That mattered. That meant there was tolerance. Limited. Measured. But real. He moved toward the sanitation wing. The corridor narrowed. Less traffic. Fewer eyes. Fewer drones. Or, at least, less visible ones. Cale stepped inside the facility.
Clean. Silent.
Empty. Rows of identical units lined the walls. Mirrors above them. Reflective surfaces that showed exactly what the system expected to see. Cale approached one.
Stopped.
Looked up. For a moment, he saw himself. Same as always.
Still.
Controlled. Empty.
But now,
he was looking deeper. Past the surface. Past the compliance. Searching. The man's voice echoed in his mind. You were never part of this system. Cale's jaw tightened. That didn't make sense. It couldn't. Everything he remembered. Everything he was. Had always been here. Hadn't it? His hand lifted slowly. Deliberately. He touched the edge of the unit.
Cold.
Solid.
Real.
Just like everything else. But something about it felt
wrong.
Not the object. The familiarity. Like it had been learned. Not lived. Cale pulled his hand back. Footsteps echoed faintly behind him.
He turned.
Another citizen entered. Head down. Movements precise. Routine. Cale stepped aside. Returned to compliance posture.
Watched.
The citizen approached a unit. Activated it. Performed the required motions. No hesitation. No awareness. Just function. Cale studied him. Not openly.
Carefully.
Looking for something. Anything. But there was nothing. No hesitation. No delay. No crack. Just obedience. The citizen finished. Turned. Left. Cale remained. Alone again. The silence pressed in. Different now. Not empty. Waiting. He exhaled slowly. Then, a sound.
Faint.
almost imagined. A low vibration. Not from the walls. Not from the units. From above. Kale froze. Listened. It came again. Distant. But growing. A deep, rolling tremor that didn't belong to the controlled environment of the facility. The lights flickered.
Once.
Kale's eyes snapped upward. That had never happened before. Never. The vibration intensified. Subtle, but undeniable. Something massive. Something external. Something
New.
A sharp crack echoed in the distance. Not inside the building. Outside. Followed by another. And another. Not random. Not isolated. A pattern. Kale's pulse spiked. His mind moved faster now. Too fast. But he didn't stop it. He couldn't. Not anymore. The man's words returned. You're going to see things change. This was it. The system didn't respond. No alarms. No drones. No instructions. For the first time, there was a delay.
A gap.
A moment where nothing happened. And in a system built on instant control, that moment was everything. Kale took a step forward. Not assigned. Not commanded. A decision. His decision. Another tremor hit. Stronger. The walls vibrated. Dust, actual dust, shook loose from the ceiling edges. That had never happened. Imperfection.
Real.
Uncontrolled. Kale turned toward the exit. The corridor beyond. Toward the source. Toward whatever was coming. His body hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. Conditioning. Years of it. Holding him in place. Telling him.
Stay.
Obey. Survive. Kale took another step. The hesitation broke. Then another. And another.
He was moving now.
Not with the line. Not with the system. On his own. Behind him. Somewhere deep in the facility. Something failed. A low hum cut out. Systems dropping. Connections breaking. The lights flickered again. Longer this time. The rhythm. The constant, ever-present rhythm.
It faltered.
For the first time in 173 cycles, the system lost control. And Kale was no longer part of it. Ahead, the sound of something tearing through the sky grew louder. Closer. And whatever it was coming fast. The first impact hit like the world itself had been struck. Kale was thrown sideways as the corridor buckled, the walls shuddering under a force they had never been designed to withstand. The lights died instantly, total darkness swallowing everything, before emergency red flooded in a heartbeat later. A second impact followed. Closer. The sound wasn't a single explosion, it was layered, rolling, overlapping. Shockwaves stacking on top of each other, turning the air into something physical, something that pushed and crushed and tore at everything it touched. Kale slammed into the wall, caught himself, forced his balance back under control. This wasn't internal failure. This wasn't system error. This was attack. Another tremor ripped through the structure. Somewhere behind him, something heavy collapsed, metal tearing, supports giving way. The controlled, perfect world was coming apart.
Kale ran.
No rhythm. No spacing. No assigned path. Just movement. His movement. The corridor ahead flickered between darkness and red light, shadows jumping violently with each pulse. Doors that had always remained sealed now hung open or half-broken, systems failing to maintain their perfect order. Citizens poured into the hall. Confusion.
Panic.
Real panic. Not suppressed. Not controlled.
Raw.
What is happening? Stay in line, stay in. There is no line. Voices. Actual voices. Kale felt it hit him harder than the explosions. They were speaking, thinking, breaking. Another detonation shook the building, closer now, and a section of the ceiling cracked open with a violent snap. Fragments rained down, forcing people to scatter.
Scatter.
That alone would have been impossible hours ago. Kale pushed forward through the chaos, his eyes scanning, his mind adapting.
Fast.
Faster than it ever had before. The system wasn't guiding him anymore.
He was.
A shadow dropped in front of him. Heavy. Metal. A guardian unit. Its optical band flickered erratically, sparks jumping across its chassis as it struggled to stabilize. One arm lifted, jerking, its weapon system attempting to deploy. Citizen, return to assigned. The voice stuttered.
Glitched. Wrong.
Kale didn't stop. The machine's arm snapped into position, emitters charging. Then it died. Instantly, like a switch had been flipped. The light in its optical band vanished. Power cascaded out of it in a burst of sparks, and the entire unit collapsed forward, slamming into the ground inches from Kale.
Dead.
Not destroyed. Disabled. Kale stared at it for half a second. Then, understanding hit. Not complete. Not yet. But enough. This wasn't random. This was targeted.
Precise.
System-wide. The man's voice echoed in his mind. They don't understand us. Kale ran again.
Faster.
He burst through the final corridor and into the main chamber. And everything stopped. Not the chaos. Not the destruction. Him. Because what he saw didn't belong to this world. The far wall, the reinforced exterior that had never once been breached,
was gone.
Not opened. Not damaged.
Gone.
Torn outward in a jagged, violent gap that exposed the outside world. Smoke poured in. Firelight flickered beyond. And the sky was burning. Lines of fire cut across it in every direction, streaking downward at impossible speed. Dozens, no, hundreds, of objects tearing through the atmosphere, trailing white-hot contrails that split the horizon apart. Kale stepped forward slowly.
Drawn.
Unable to look away. More impacts followed. Outside. Across the city. Buildings shook. Structures collapsed. The Overseer's perfect control was unraveling in real time. Above, the drones rose to meet the incoming storm. Hundreds of silver spheres ascending rapidly, their forms shifting mid-flight, unfolding into weaponized configurations. Energy beams lanced upward. Precise.
Deadly.
Several of the falling objects were hit. Explosions bloomed in the sky. Fireballs tearing apart in midair, debris scattering across the skyline. But it didn't matter. For every one destroyed, more followed. Far more. An endless wave. Relentless. Unstoppable. And then, something else happened. The drones
stopped.
Mid-flight. Their movements stuttered. Flickered. One by one. They went dark. No explosions. No impacts. Just
shut down.
They fell from the sky like rain. Silver bodies dropping, lifeless, crashing into streets, buildings, anything below them. Kale's breath caught. He knew what he was seeing now. Not fully, but enough. This was it. This was the thing the system had never accounted for. Not brute force. Not resistance. Something else. Something deeper. Something that attacked the foundation itself. The city was losing control. No, it had already lost it. A final wave of incoming objects tore through the sky. Larger. Heavier. Different. They didn't break apart under fire. They didn't slow. They punched through the atmosphere like it wasn't there. And this time, when they reached the ground, they didn't just hit. They exploded open. Not in destruction. In release. Kale stepped closer to the broken edge of the wall, staring down into the streets below. What he saw next changed everything. Weapons. Hundreds of them. Scattered across the ground. Rifles. Sidearms. Crates of ammunition. Falling from the shattered remains of those pods, bouncing across the pavement, sliding to rest between the wreckage of dead drones. The citizens below stood frozen, surrounded, armed, and completely unsure of what to do.
Kale felt it.
That moment. That exact moment where everything could change or collapse back into fear. The system had controlled them for too long, taught them too well. Hope was dangerous. Action was fatal. And yet, the sky was still burning.
The machines were still falling.
And the weapons were real. Kale's grip tightened at his side. His mind sharpened.
Because now,
it wasn't about survival anymore. It was about choice. And for the first time, that choice belonged to them. No one moved. Not at first. The street below was frozen in place. Dozens of citizens standing among scattered weapons and fallen machines, caught between instinct and conditioning. Kale could feel it even from above. That hesitation, that deep, ingrained fear that whispered the same thing into every mind. It's a trap. A woman below took a step back from a rifle lying at her feet, shaking her head slowly. No, no, this isn't real. A man beside her swallowed hard, eyes darting to the sky, then to the shattered drones around him. They're testing us, he said. They want to see who breaks. Others murmured agreement, fear spreading faster than fire ever could. Kale clenched his jaw.
Of course they thought that.
The system had trained them perfectly. Hope had always been punished. Trust had always been exploited. Why would this be different? Another explosion rippled across the city. Closer this time. A building in the distance collapsed inward, smoke rising in thick, choking waves. The sky above it burned brighter as more objects tore through the atmosphere. Still, no one reached for the weapons. Then, one of them moved. A young man.
Tall. Steady.
Breathing hard, but not backing away. Kale locked onto him instantly. The man stared down at the rifle near his feet. For a moment, he didn't move. Then his hand twitched.
Stopped.
Twitched again. A war playing out inside him. Everything the system had forced into him. Against something older. Something deeper. Something that refused to die. Slowly, he bent down. Every movement cautious.
Measured.
Like the air itself might react. His fingers closed around the weapon. Nothing happened. No drones descended. No voice spoke. No correction came. The man lifted the rifle, turned it in his hands. Unfamiliar, but not entirely. Kale saw it in the way his grip adjusted, in the way his stance shifted. Not trained, but remembered. Like something buried deep in his species, something the overseers had suppressed, but never fully erased. Around him, others watched. Breath held, waiting. A shadow dropped.
Fast.
Violent. A guardian unit slammed into the street in front of him, cracking the pavement beneath its weight. Its optical band flared to life, bright and focused. Unauthorized possession detected, it said instantly. Disarm and assume compliance. The young man didn't hesitate. Not this time. He raised the rifle, pulled the trigger. The weapon kicked against his shoulder. A single round fired, and the effect was immediate. The Guardian's optical band shattered in a burst of light. The round didn't just penetrate, it detonated inside, sending a cascade of energy through the machine's frame. It locked.
Seized.
Then collapsed into a heap of dead metal. Silence followed. Heavy. Impossible. Then, the young man looked down at the rifle in his hands. Then at the machine at his feet. Then at the people around him. And something changed. Not just in him. In all of them. A sound rose. Low at first. Uncertain. Then stronger.
A roar. Raw. Alive.
The spell broke.
People moved.
Not back. Forward. They grabbed the weapons. All of them. Hands that had only known obedience, now closed around rifles, pistols, anything they could carry. Fear didn't vanish. But it changed. It turned. Into something else. Something sharper. Kale felt it hit him like a shockwave. This was it. This was the moment. Below, the first return fire erupted. Another Guardian unit dropped, and was torn apart before it could even finish speaking. Drones descended, and were shot out of the air before they could lock targets. The city, the same city that had walked in silence hours ago, was fighting. Kale turned from the shattered wall. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate.
He ran.
Down the broken corridors, through smoke and falling debris, past citizens who were no longer moving in lines but in chaos. Real chaos. Alive chaos. The system was gone, and something else was taking its place. He burst out of the building into the open street. Heat hit him immediately. Smoke.
Fire. Sound.
So much sound. Gunfire cracked through the air. Energy beams hissed and tore into structures. Explosions rolled across the avenue. And everywhere, movement. Citizens fighting. Machines falling. The war had already begun. Kale scanned the ground. Found one. A rifle. Half buried beneath the wreckage of a fallen drone. He dropped to one knee. Pulled it free. It was heavier than he expected. Solid.
Real.
His hands adjusted instinctively.
Checking it.
Balancing it. Understanding it. Not learned. Not taught. Remembered. His breath slowed. Focused. A drone dropped from above.
Fast. Targeting.
Kale raised the weapon. No hesitation. No doubt. He fired. The round struck true. The drone convulsed midair, systems collapsing instantly before it crashed into the street behind him. Kale exhaled.
Once.
Then looked up, because something else was coming. A second wave. Larger pods tore through the sky, different from the first. Armored. Reinforced. Untouched by the failing defenses. They hit the ground hard. Not scattering weapons this time. Opening. Releasing. Figures.
Tall.
Armored. Moving with precision that made everything else on the battlefield look chaotic. They launched forward instantly. Coordinated.
Fast. Deadly.
Kale watched as one of them lifted off the ground, propelled by controlled bursts of energy, sweeping across the street with impossible speed. Weapons in their hands fired in controlled bursts, each shot precise, each target eliminated before it could react. Drones fell. Machines collapsed. Entire clusters of overseer forces were erased in seconds. This wasn't resistance. This was dominance. Kale felt it in his chest. That realization. That truth. The man on the screen. He hadn't lied. They don't understand us. Kale tightened his grip on the rifle, watched as the armored figures cut through the battlefield like it belonged to them. Because it did. And for the first time, the overseers were the ones being erased. They didn't slow down. The armored figures moved through the streets like a force of nature, precise, controlled, unstoppable. Each formation flowed into the next without hesitation, every movement calculated before it even happened. Kale watched one team sweep across the avenue. 4 of them. They didn't speak, not out loud, but their coordination was flawless. One lifted into the air, scanning, marking targets. 2 advanced on the ground, weapons tracking faster than Kale's eyes could follow. The 4th covered the rear, eliminating anything that tried to flank. Drones dropped out of the sky in clusters. Enforcers that had once controlled entire districts were reduced to scrap in seconds. The difference wasn't just power. It was intent. These weren't machines enforcing order. These were soldiers ending it. Kale stepped forward, raising his weapon again as another drone descended toward a group of civilians who were still struggling to organize themselves. He fired. The shot hit. The drone collapsed. The civilians looked at him, really looked at him for the first time, not as another body in the system, as something else. One of them, awake. Kale didn't stop. He moved. Through the smoke, through the noise, through the chaos that no longer felt overwhelming but right. A Guardian unit rounded the corner ahead, heavier than the others, its armor thicker, its weapons already charging. Kale dropped behind a shattered transport barrier, breath steady, mind clear.
Think.
Not react. The machine fired. Energy tore across the street, blasting chunks of concrete into the air. Kale shifted position. Waited.
Watched.
The pattern. There. A half-second delay between targeting cycles. A flaw. Small. But enough. He leaned out. Fired once. The round struck the unit's optical band. It detonated inside. The machine froze. Then collapsed. Kale exhaled. No fear. No hesitation. Just execution. Footsteps landed beside him. Heavy. Controlled. Kale turned and found himself face to face with one of them. Up close, the armor was even more imposing. Matte black, reinforced plating layered with purpose. The helmet concealed everything, a dark visor reflecting the burning city around them. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then the soldier tilted his head slightly. A gesture. Acknowledgement. Recognition. Not of who Kale was, but of what he was doing. The soldier's voice came through an external speaker.
Calm.
Focused. Left sector's collapsing, he said. You holding? Kale blinked. The The question hit him harder than anything else. You holding? Not an order. Not a command. A question. He answered without thinking. Yes. The soldier nodded once. Good. Stay mobile. Don't cluster. Their heavy units are still active. Then he was gone, launching upward with a burst of controlled thrust, joining his team midair as they swept toward another engagement zone. Kale watched him go for half a second, then turned back, because the fight wasn't over. Not even close. The sound shifted. Lower. Heavier. Kale felt it before he saw it. The ground vibrating with a different kind of weight. From the far end of the street, something emerged, larger than the enforcers, taller, bulkier. Its frame wasn't built for control. It was built for war. A command unit. Its surface pulsed with energy, multiple weapon systems unfolding as it advanced, each step cracking the pavement beneath it. The remaining drones regrouped around it. Defensive formation. Adaptive. Learning. Kale's grip tightened. This was what the system had been hiding. The real force behind the control. A weapon designed not for obedience, but for annihilation. It raised its arm. Energy built. Then, the sky above it tore open again. A human fire team dropped directly into its path. 4 figures descending in perfect formation, landing hard without breaking stride. They didn't hesitate. Didn't slow. They engaged instantly. Coordinated fire slammed into the command unit from multiple angles, forcing it to redirect its defenses. It adapted. Fast. Too fast. One of the soldiers was thrown back as a blast caught him mid-movement, his armor absorbing most of the impact, but not all. He hit the ground hard. Didn't get up immediately. Kale saw it. Felt it. That shift. That moment. Humans weren't untouchable. They could bleed. They could fall. And the machine, it saw it too. It turned. Redirected its focus. Targeting the downed soldier. Weapons charging. Kale moved. Not thinking. Not hesitating. Moving. He broke cover, sprinting forward as the command unit locked onto its target. The distance closed fast. Too fast. The machine fired. Kale dove. Rolled. Came up on one knee. And fired everything he had. Round after round slammed into the unit's side, forcing it to shift its attention. Just enough. The fire team reacted instantly. The remaining 3 adjusted position, splitting angles, overwhelming its targeting systems. Now, one of them shouted. Kale didn't understand the plan. Didn't need to. He kept firing. Relentless. Focused. The command unit staggered under the combined assault, its system struggling to prioritize threats. One of the soldiers launched upward, then came down hard, driving something into the machine's exposed core. A charge. A controlled detonation. Clear, the soldier shouted. Kale didn't wait. He ran. The explosion hit a fraction of a second later. A violent, contained blast that tore through the command unit from the inside out. Its frame split apart, energy discharging in a cascade of light and force before collapsing into burning wreckage. The shockwave rolled through the street. Then, silence. Not complete, but different. The immediate threat, gone. Kale stood there, breathing hard, smoke curling around him. The downed soldier was moving, slowly, but alive. The others regrouped instantly, pulling him up, checking him, stabilizing. Efficient. Controlled. Human. One of them looked toward Kale again. This time, there was no hesitation in the nod. No question. Just certainty. He had fought. He had chosen. And that was enough. Above them, the sky was clearing. Drones were gone. Machines were falling. The system was collapsing. And for the first time, the city was free. The fighting didn't stop. It changed. The chaos that had filled the streets minutes ago began to sharpen. Unfocused resistance turning into something organized, something deliberate. The humans moved through the city like a spine forming inside a broken body, giving structure to something that had forgotten how to stand. Kale felt it happening around him. Citizens who had fired blindly moments ago were now taking positions, following movements, watching how the armored soldiers advanced and adapted. Instincts buried under months of control were resurfacing, fast. A voice cut through the noise. Form on me. Keep your spacing. Don't bunch up. Not a machine. Not a command broadcast. A human. Cale turned. One of the soldiers had removed part of his helmet, exposing his face just enough to be seen. Sweat, focus, intensity. He gestured sharply, directing a group of civilians into cover behind a collapsed structure. Watch the angles, he continued. They'll try to flank. Don't let them regroup. The civilians moved. Not perfectly. Not like before. But willingly. Choosing to follow. That alone changed everything. Cale stepped forward, scanning the street. Fires burned along the edges of shattered buildings. Wreckage of overseer machines littered the ground, their once perfect forms now broken and lifeless. No drones in the sky. No voices in the air. No rhythm. Just reality. A figure stumbled toward him. An older man, injured, one arm hanging useless at his side, breathing uneven but still moving. Cale reached him before he fell, caught him, held him steady. The contact hit harder than the battle. Physical. Real. Not forbidden. Not punished. The man looked at him, eyes wide, not with fear, but something else. Disbelief. You helped me, he said, voice shaking. Cale didn't answer immediately, because that simple act would have been a death sentence hours ago.
Now.
It wasn't. Stay behind cover, Cale said finally, guiding him toward a safer position. Don't stay exposed. The man nodded, gripping Cale's arm for a moment before letting go. Thank you, he whispered. Cale turned away, back to the fight. But something inside him shifted. Not violently, not suddenly, just solidifying. The man on the screen had been right. They hadn't just come to destroy the system. They had come to give something back.
Choice.
Movement erupted to his right. Another cluster of overseer units advanced into the district, smaller than before, fragmented, disorganized. Whatever controlled them was breaking apart. They weren't coordinating anymore. They were reacting. Cale raised his rifle.
Fired.
Dropped the first one before it could lock onto a group of civilians. Others joined in. Not just humans. Citizens. Working together now. Covering each other. Learning fast. The last of the machines fell quickly. Too quickly. Cale lowered his weapon slowly. His breathing steadied. The street was quiet. Not silent.
Alive.
People moved through the aftermath, checking on each other, pulling survivors from debris, gathering weapons not out of fear, but readiness. Above, the sky had changed. The fire was fading. The streaks of falling objects were gone. In their place, shapes. Massive. Dark against the upper atmosphere. Ships. Human ships. Holding position. Watching. Controlling.
Cale stared at them.
A strange calm settled over him. This wasn't just an attack. This had been planned. Executed. Finished. Footsteps approached. Cale turned. The same soldier from earlier, the one who had spoken to him, landed nearby, armor still marked with the signs of battle. He removed his helmet this time, revealing his face fully.
Human.
No distortion. No artificial perfection. Just human. He studied Cale for a moment, then nodded. You're still alive, he said. It almost sounded like approval. Cale met his gaze. So are you. The soldier smirked slightly. Yeah, that's kind of the goal. He glanced around the street, taking in the damage, the survivors, the absence of overseer presence. Then he looked back at Cale. This sector's clear, he said. Rest of the city's stabilizing fast. They're collapsing everywhere. Cale followed his gaze upward, toward the ships. You did this, he said. The soldier shrugged lightly. We helped. A pause. Then, you guys did the rest. Cale didn't respond immediately, because that wasn't entirely true. Not yet. But it could be. The soldier studied him again. Longer this time. More carefully. Then he reached up and tapped the side of his armor. Command, he said. I've got a live one here. Matches the profile. A brief pause. Listening.
Then.
Yeah, he said. He's ready. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. Ready for what? The soldier looked at him. Really looked this time. Not as a civilian. Not as a survivor. As something else. Something known. Debrief, he said. And then deployment. Kale felt that word settle in. Deployment. Not recovery. Not rescue. Something more. The soldier stepped closer. Lowered his voice. You remember more than you think, he said quietly. And we're going to need that. Kale's grip tightened slightly on the rifle. The battlefield around them faded for a moment. Because suddenly, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The soldier straightened. Transport's inbound, he said. You coming? Kale looked around. At the city. At the people. At the freedom that had just been torn back from something that had tried to erase it. Then he looked up. At the ships. At the unknown waiting beyond them. At the truth he didn't fully understand yet, but was ready to face. He nodded. I'm coming. The soldier smiled faintly. Knew you would. Above them, something descended.
Fast. Precise.
A transport cutting through the sky, locking onto their position. Kale watched it arrive. Felt the air shift around him. Felt everything shifting. Because the war for this world was over. But something told him the real fight had just begun. The transport didn't land. It hovered. A controlled descent that stopped just meters above the fractured street, its underside opening with mechanical precision as a column of light extended downward. Move, the soldier said. Kale stepped forward without hesitation. No lines. No signals. No system guiding him. Just a decision. He entered the light. For a fraction of a second, weight vanished. The world dropped away beneath him as the beam pulled him upward, smooth and effortless. The noise of the city, the gunfire, the voices, the aftermath of war, faded into a distant echo. Then, solid ground. He stepped out into the transport's interior. The difference hit instantly. Everything here was sharp.
Defined. Alive.
Not sterile like the overseer structures. Not artificial. Functional, but human. People moved around him, real movement, unsynchronized, purposeful, but not controlled. Voices overlapped. Commands were given, acknowledged, adapted in real time. No perfect rhythm. No silence. No suppression. Kale stood still for a moment,
Taking it in.
A soldier passed by, carrying equipment, brushing past him without even a glance. Another leaned over a console, adjusting something manually instead of relying on automated perfection. Imperfection. Everywhere. And yet, nothing here felt weak. It felt stronger. More dangerous. Don't lock up on me now.
Kale turned.
The same soldier, helmet off, expression steady, walked past him, gesturing to follow.
Come on.
You're not done yet.
Kale moved.
The interior of the transport opened into a larger chamber toward the front. A central display projected shifting data, maps, movement patterns, signals from across the planet. Everywhere. Combat markers fading. Zones turning from red to clear. The soldier stopped at a station and tapped the surface. The display shifted. Focused. On Kale. A profile appeared. Not generic. Not fabricated. Detailed. Accurate. Kale felt something tighten in his chest. This is you, the soldier said. Kale stared at it. Name, Kale Varen designation, embedded operative status, recovered. Recovered. Not rescued. Recovered. You weren't supposed to stay down there this long, the soldier continued. System interference scrambled our extraction window. Took us a while to punch through their network clean enough to reach you. Kale's eyes moved across the data. Fragments of things he didn't remember, but recognized. Training logs, mission assignments, locations that meant nothing, and everything at the same time. You were placed inside before the overseers completed full integration, the soldier said. Deep cover. Observational priority. Kale's voice came slower now. Controlled. You said I wasn't part of the system. The soldier nodded. You weren't. You were inside it.
A pause.
Big difference. Kale looked up. Then why don't I remember? The soldier leaned back slightly. Because we buried you, he said simply. Hard enough that even they couldn't find you. That landed.
Heavy.
They rewrote your world, he continued. We rewrote you. Kale absorbed that.
Piece by piece.
You were our eyes, the soldier said. Then you went dark when they locked the planet down. No signals. No extraction. No way in. And now?
Kale asked.
The soldier's expression sharpened. Now we're in. As if to confirm it, the transport shifted.
Subtle.
But real. They were moving. Ascending.
Kale felt it.
Looked toward the open side of the chamber as the city fell away beneath them. Smoke still rose from scattered points. Fires still burned. But the movement, the chaos, it was settling, stabilizing. They're done, the soldier said, following his gaze. Whatever control network they had is gone. The rest of their units are just leftovers. Kale watched as another cluster of machines below flickered, then shut down completely. No fight left. No command left to follow. They controlled everything, Kale said quietly. Yeah, the soldier replied. Until they didn't. Kale looked back at the display, at his name, at the designation. Embedded operative. You said deployment, Kale said. The soldier nodded.
Yeah.
A beat. Then, because this, he gestured toward the planet below. This wasn't the main problem.
Kale felt that.
Immediately. Of course it wasn't. Systems like that, they didn't exist alone. They're part of something bigger, the soldier continued. A network. Expansion models. Controlled worlds feeding into larger structures. Kale's mind moved. Fast again.
But now.
It wasn't fighting itself. It was aligning. Understanding. And we're going after it, he said. Not a question. The soldier smiled slightly. Now you're catching up. The transport broke atmosphere. The sky shifted from burning orange to black. Stars spread out across the void. And there, hanging above everything, the fleet. Massive. Silent. Power held in restraint. Kale stepped closer to the viewing edge. Staring. This was where the voice had come from. This was where the decision had been made. To come back. To break a system. To burn through a planet's defenses. For one operative. They came for me, Kale said quietly. The soldier stepped beside him. Yeah, he said. Kale didn't look away from the fleet. That doesn't make sense. The soldier shrugged lightly. It doesn't have to. A pause. Then, we take care of our own. The word settled.
Deep. Permanent.
Kale nodded once.
Slow.
Understanding something that went beyond logic. Beyond strategy. Beyond efficiency. Humanity. The transport adjusted course. Angling toward one of the larger ships.
Kale straightened.
His grip tightened, not on a weapon this time, but on something else. Purpose. All right, the soldier said, stepping back. Let's get you back to work. Kale turned. No hesitation left. No uncertainty. Tell me the mission, he said. The soldier's smile returned. Sharp. Confident. Good, he said. Then he slid a data file across the console toward Kale. You're going to love this one. Kale picked it up. Activated it. And as the details began to unfold, one thing became very clear. The war they had just won was nothing compared to what came next.